Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you. This is going to be real quick. I'm actually out grabbing a few things, and there's this thing just basically rushing through my head, and I was going to try to wait till I got back to the lab to sit down and actually share this with you guys, but it's just on my mind. It's real simple in the idea of concept, but it's so immensely profound in the area of life performance. When I think about the people in my life, people who I'm either related to, one of them just dropped in, and a number of other people I've had the immense pleasure of being around who society would consider to be someone extremely successful, someone who is at the top of their craft, someone who shines when given the opportunity. Those people we tend to look at a distance and assume they have something that the rest of the world doesn't have, and that's why they excel at what they do, and that's why they're exceptional at what they do, whether it's basketball, whether it's music, whether it's business, whether it's finance, whether it's relationship, whatever it is. But the truth of the matter is, when you boil it all down, and I was just sitting around thinking about this, and it's real simple. We start a lot of things, but we don't finish. We don't finish strong. We don't enter into the game with a mindset of commitment to finish. We don't finish strong in our marriages. We don't finish strong in our business endeavors. We don't finish strong in our work efforts, our desire to improve ourselves. We simply don't finish strong. We get started at stuff and we stop. And see, the thing is, we're in a culture that doesn't demand that we finish strong. Think about it. When you start school in kindergarten and then you go to first grade, where you start actually being graded and measured on your performance, you can get a 70, and in some places a 65, and it's a passing grade. It's a D. And you can literally graduate from that grade to the next grade with a D average. Well, that's only 7% of the demanded performance. And even on that level, the demanded performance isn't that great. There are things you can do far beyond what's being demanded of you to get 100. You can literally score 120 if you apply yourself. But nobody's applying 120 because the culture around them doesn't demand it. We're in a culture where we, first of all, have this microwave mentality where if I try something and it doesn't work right away, if I tried it within 2 weeks, 6 months, a year, whatever it is, and it doesn't work, then it wasn't meant to be. And then we've got these built-in excuses, especially those of us who practice a particular faith or a particular religion. We got these built-in excuses. See, if I tried for a while and it doesn't work, that means that it wasn't God's will. So we like to blame a lot of our unwillingness to really buckle down and go after it and become committed to something on God. You know, it just didn't happen. It wasn't God's will. It wasn't in the timing wasn't right. It wasn't written, God, it wasn't part of God's plan. No, God has promised that he will not withhold anything of you that is of good. And no matter what faith you practice, that God has promised you that if you go out after something that will allow you to not only benefit yourself, but to benefit others and to raise your level of impact in the world, it will not be held. Nothing will be held. Nothing shall be impossible. That's a promise. So if you're not functioning in it, it's something you're doing. It ain't God. Stop blaming it on God. Stop blaming it on the universe. Stop blaming it on life. Stop blaming it on all the people that's done all these things to you, and actually face the fact that you're not committed. You're not willing to finish strong. If you get into it and it's hard and it's difficult, see, but a lot of that comes from the fact that a bunch of us aren't functioning in our passion. A bunch of us are out there doing what somebody else told us we should do because it was practical. You know, it didn't really appeal to our passion. It didn't appeal to our purpose. It didn't appeal to what, see, and I can tell you something. Your very sanity. You know, a lot of people say, well, you know, they quit. Well, your sanity will make you quit when it gets rough, when it gets tough, when it's painful. If you're doing something you don't love, if you're doing something you're not passionate about, if you're doing something that you just can't wait to wake up in the morning to do again, if you're doing something that you literally look at and it's okay for you, it's paying the bills, it's providing a lifestyle, but you're not passionate about it, you're not absolutely in love with it, you're not just enamored by it, when it gets rough, your sanity will say it's not worth it. But when you're operating in your passion, it'll push you through the pain. When you're operating in your passion, it'll elevate you above all of the negative energy and the obstacles that you're going through to get through it. See, it's not how gifted you are. It's not how talented you are. It's not how many people you know. It's none of those things. It's the distance you're willing to go to get what you want. You have to be willing to finish strong in order to have something. We've got a bunch of people who don't finish. We don't finish anything we start. I mean, to me, there's nothing more powerful and demanding of commitment and finishing than marriage. And shoot, 50% of the people in this country don't finish it. We're in this situation where we get in something as long as it's good. As long as it's good. And society continues to make things comfortable for us to get out of and not be judged. Why? Because, see, we are naturally social creatures, meaning that we literally are designed to emulate the things around us, draw energy and feed off of energy of things around us. That's why normally you'll find a bunch of negative people hanging around one another. Why? Because the energies resonate. Like energy connects and draws and attracts like energy. So you got a bunch of negative people hanging around each other, being negative and keeping each other in that environment and that element. And that's a problem. We're social creatures. So we look around us, and if we are people who normally quit, we normally hang around people who normally quit. If you look in your circle right now, the people you spend the time with, the 5 people you spend the most time with, will have contributed a great deal to where you are right now, who you are, how you think, how you behave. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. And if you want to change your life, you got to change your circle. You got to change that energy. And I was telling someone that I work with, one of my clients that I'm working with, I was telling them that you have to stop expecting your organic circle to perform like a circle that you self-constructed. So there's a difference. Your organic circle are your people you grew up with, your family members and all of those. And you keep expecting them to support your vision. You keep expecting them to support your dream. You keep expecting them to stand up and believe in you and push you to a level. And see, they are there by default. And that the default circle, those in your periphery by default, are very rarely the ones that are going to be the ones that contribute to your elevation, because normally you are who you are because of where you come from. If you're looking to get something greater, you've got to step outside of that box and step into another world. And that requires you to construct, literally invest in finding people who are on the same level or are on a higher level. You want people in your circle that drive you, that push you, that hold you accountable, but people who believe in you, that lift you up, that tell you how awesome you are, that speak positivity on a consistent basis. Your family and friends will generally want to remind you of who you are. Now, you have some, I'm blessed to have some family members that do some exceptional things. So we kind of push each other, but we also know we got family members we can't hang around. We know what's going to happen. We get anywhere them. There are people in my family I don't share anything with. Then there are others that I'm not only proud of, but I can share my passion, my dream, my expectations with, because I know that they are functioning on a level where they can believe in what I'm talking about because they're walking on clouds. But you got to finish strong. That's one of the problems that we have in this culture, is that we are not demanded. It's not demanded of us that we finish. And nobody's going to hold it against us. And your very sanity will demand that you give up on something you're not passionate about. Shoot, if I ain't got something that's just driving me, if it's not something that I wake up in the morning and absolutely love to do, if it's not connected to my reason for being here, yeah, I'm going to get to a point when it gets rough to where it ain't worth it, no matter what I'm being paid. But when I'm living in a passion, doing something I absolutely love, I wake up in the morning, can't wait to do it. I'm on my grind. I'm pushing. I'm going and I'm fighting. I'm refusing to give up when it gets tough, because this is what I'm built for. This is what I'm made for. This is what I do. You guys have got to get to a point to find your passion. A bunch of you don't even have that. You're functioning in a practical state. You're functioning in this limited mindset, or these limited expectations, these limiting beliefs that have been cast upon you by those that you grew up around, those that raised you, whatever it is. You got a lot of people who are ancient in their thinking, and they cannot see anything beyond what was given to them, and they're going to push it upon you because that's where they live. If you want something more than that, you got to come out of it. You've got to come out of that. You've got to get to a point to where you are literally saying, I am in my zone, or what I call your element. You're operating in your element, that place where you're just naturally good at. You're great, you're functioning, you're doing that. Then you have to be in the right environment. You got to thrive. And see, that's why you've got to construct a circle. That organic circle that you have is not it. That organic circle you have, that the circle by default, the default circle, your family, your friends, the people you grew up around. They were there for a minute, but that was default. You didn't have a choice in that. That was cast upon you. You've got to self-construct an environment and a circle around you that will create the most optimal opportunity. So you have to be in the right element, doing what you are actually gifted to do, and you do well and you love doing. That's your element. Then you have your environment. Your environment is this place that you create. And one of the things that, and I posted about this earlier, one of the things that I find myself in now is this environment that I've never experienced before, and that's being married to my wife. I've done some things that, while in other relationships, I've done some things that most people won't do. But I fought hard, a lot of times fighting against the energy that's in right next to me, the most prevalent source of energy right next to me. But when you get into that right environment, that environment where your equilibrium is not being challenged but supported, when you get in that right environment where the people around you, whether it's your wife, whether it's your children, whether it's your friends, are literally sitting up and saying, hey, look, we're going to hold you accountable, but we're going to support you. We're going to tell you when we think you're off, but we're never going to tell you that you can't. We're going to sit up and say, if that's what you want to do, I believe you can do it. And tell me what you need from me. And then you're going to turn around and you're going to pour back into them. You're going to create this environment of reciprocity that turns around and becomes cyclical, where you're feeding them, they're feeding you. You're lifting them, they're lifting you. You're loving them, they're loving you. And you're driving that and driving it and driving it. And you look and you're just growing up. You're going up, you're going up, you're going up like that kite we used to fly when we were kids. We used to go out and buy extra rolls of string, and we would literally catch the winds in March. And we would go out into a field and we would fly a kite. It would get so high you could hardly see it. And it all came from moving against resistance, but learning how to use the resistance and using the tools you had to get to where you were trying to get. And that's what that environment is. But see, then you have, after your element and your environment, you've got to have the right energy. See, a lot of people are functioning in energy frequencies that don't produce optimal results. And see, while we talk about negative energy and positive energy, we talk about low frequency and high frequency. What we have to understand is that even when you get into high frequencies, there's still multitudinous frequencies you can operate in. Not everybody is meant to be in a high-paced positive energy frequency. Some people need a slow-paced energy. Some people will get bored and distracted in a slow-paced positive energy environment. They need something almost hectic in order to drive and push them. You've got to be in the right energy level. Now, I'm gonna tell you something about energy that's very scary. People talking about negative energy and positive energy, and the funny thing is, for all the Christian believers out there, there's a part in Revelation that talks about the lukewarm Christian. See, it's not the person who is hot or cold that has the problem. See, the one that's hot is on pace. They're being driven by their passion. They're being driven by their love. They're being driven by their commitment. And the one that is absolutely cold knows they're cold. And so they know that if they want something different, they've got to change. But the lukewarm one is right in that comfort zone. And that's what happens when you start talking about neutral energy. There's no such thing as neutral energy. You're either in a positive zone or a negative zone. What happens is when you think you're functioning with neutral energy, it's so subtly what it is you can't tell. And it can move one way or another without you knowing it. You could be subtly positive, but not strong enough in the positive sector to stay in there and grow till you can slip down in the negative sector and not know it. Everything just kind of subtly starts to go wrong. Everything starts to subtly go back. You start to attracting things you don't want to attract. And before you look up, hey, you get into where it's more and more and more negative, because see, that's the momentum of life. You either get more positive, more stronger, more focused, or you becoming more negative, more cynical, expecting negativity, expecting wrong things to happen, not trusting anything, apprehensive and anxious, and all of these things that only lead to poor health, poor results, inactivity. But when you start to understand that place of neutrality is not neutral, it's very dangerous, because it's hard to read. You're always looking to elevate yourself, lift yourself, and you've got to do that. That's something you have to be proactive about. You've got to actually be willing to be engaged in producing your joy, your happiness, your fulfillment, your advancement, your growth. It's not something you wait on to happen. It's not something you look to somebody else to provide for you. It's something you set out on. When you take that first step and you become committed, long before you know how you're going to do it, the universe begins to move on your behalf. It begins to conspire with you to produce those things you want. That's called faith. That's when you step out into the area of the unknown, and you just know, because you know that it is possible, you're going to make it happen. And then when you step out, William Hutchinson Murray says, when you take the first step, providence moves. It's not until you take the first step that providence moves, that doors begin to open, that relationships begin to develop, that the things that you have set out to do begin to show you how they're going to formulate and advance in your life. You've got to have a sense or a willingness to step out. And back to the original point, and then I'm out of here. I gotta grab what I gotta get back to the office. But look, finish strong. It's, you got a lot of people that'll start, but as soon as it gets rough, they back up. You got a lot of people that'll get out there, and then it gets hard, it gets difficult. You get a couple of no's, you get a couple of doors slammed in your face. You fall down and scratch yourself up a little bit. You get knocked down, pushed back. You meet delay. You get all these little things going on, and you decide, well, it's not God's will. But no, that's not how it works. It's anything that you desire that is of good and that you can use for good will not be withheld from you. So if you're not getting it, it's something you're not doing. See, you got a lot of people that'll put sweat equity into something and then turn around and walk away from it. They'll be in it for a year, but if it doesn't happen in the year, it wasn't meant to be. They'll be in it for 3 and 4 and 5 years, and if it doesn't happen, it wasn't meant to be. There's some things it took me 7, 8, 9 years to get from the day I started it, but I refused to quit on it, and it came to fruition. It's not about time. Time is redemptive when you have faith that you are here for a purpose. Time will redeem itself. In not in the sense of increments of time, but in the sense of impact and fulfillment. And what do I mean by that? I mean that when you sit up and say, well, I don't care how many years I've been in it, I believe it, and I set out to do it, I'm going to do it. And that's my thing. I'm going to get it, I'm going to die trying. Those are the only two options in anything I decide to invest myself in. I'm going to either get it or I'm going to die trying. But see, when I get into it and I put my equity and I keep pushing, what I find out is that when I do reach it, the impact of what I'm able to deliver by having it it succeeds or transcends the time that I put into it, therefore redeeming the time. While there were 10 years put into it where I wasn't as effective, when I do become effective in it, I make up for that time in relatively short period of time. So I redeem the time through the effectiveness, productivity, and the power that I assume when I finish. Finish strong. Absolutely love you guys. I got out here. Live life on full. Live it on full. Stay committed and finish strong. I got to get out of here. Absolutely love you guys. Stay strong. Stay focused. Get to work on being the best you can be. Accept no excuses for yourself. From yourself. And when you start to raise the level of expectation in your life, raise the standards that you operate by, and you demand of yourself in your life, you will also begin to lower your tolerance for excuses, lower your tolerance for accepting mediocrity from yourself and from others. And you will find that you will start to refine your circle, refine your environment, refine your energy, and refine your element. And you will start to see that you're performing at a level you almost never thought possible. It is possible. There's no such thing as impossible, except for when you accept it as a part of your reality. With that being said, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable day. Peace.